What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Ain't That It, where real life becomes real topics. I am Mario. This is my new platform. I know some of you may be used to me seeing me on Hey Pumpkin with Mama Kim and Brian, but this is like a little spinoff from that. So, Ain't That It? You may be asking, like, where did that come from? That is my catchphrase. It's been my catchphrase for many years. Anybody that knows me is familiar with me saying, "Ain't that it?" I use it as either a statement, a question, a punctuation, whatever it is. I find a use for that that phrase. Ain't that it? So, thank you for joining me today. So we have Father's Day coming up. And so I just wanted to do a little dedication to my father on today. So this will be my first Father's Day without my dad. He passed in February of this year. So um, if I could be honest and say that it's realistic, but it doesn't still feel real. So the fact of him not being here, him passing, is realistic, but also the fact that he's not here doesn't quite feel real yet, and hasn't quite set in. There's little pieces here and there that make it seem more real, but as a whole, and its totality of everything, it doesn't quite seem real yet. For those who know me, know that my dad was a huge, huge part of my life. So navigating this life in in his absence, or with his absence rather, is kind of going to take some getting used to it. This being the new normal. Um, so and the little things that I find myself missing, be it that he had this thing. I say we had this thing that even though I would tell him my schedule on a regular basis, I'm like, Daddy, I work this day, that day, this time, that whatever. And so he would always call me. And so he would call me, and then I'd be like, Hey, Daddy, I'm at work. And he'd be like, Oh, you at work? Okay. And then you would think that that would be enough for him. However, no. He would say, Yeah, oh, you at work. And then he would proceed to go into detail about what he called for. And I'm like, Hey, man, I'm at work. I'll call you when I get off of work. And so then I had gotten the habit of, as soon as I had left the building, I would hit him up, and then he might not answer, and then we play phone tag until we finally catch each other later on that evening. But it's little things like that that I miss. At the time, it became such a habit and such a common occurrence for us. I didn't realize how much I would miss it. Matter of fact, he's still pinned as one of my top people in my phone, and so I sometimes look at my phone, waiting, hoping, wishing that I'll receive a text for him. Mind you, now if I did see a text from him pop up, I would be scared as fuck. However, I still wish, that I would receive a text from him, or something like that. Just I guess that's my way of saying I really wish he was still here. Um, I had probably the best father. And I know a lot of people will say, my daddy's the best daddy. No. And I will say, my dad is the best father. Um, I will put him up against anybody, because he was not just a father to me, or is not just a father to me. He has been a father to others, whether it be family members, even the neighborhood kids took to him and call him Daddy Tony and all those type of things. So it is refreshing to know that my dad has been so loved, and that his memory and legacy lives um, within so many people. Um, Before we really get into this Father's Day uh, I don't even call it tribute, just saying to this Father's Day celebration. Um, so when my father was nearing, he came to stay here um, in his last days, and so it was my way of trying to capture every moment. Take more pictures, and even just to capture his voice was important to me. So just want to play you a little piece of my father. Um, this was, I think, the Sunday after, or the Sunday, yeah, the Sunday after we went and picked him up. So.
I sang. I'm a vocalist. So I got to see a lot for a Mississippi guy, and so I don't feel cheated at all. Yes and no. What's a cheat? I want to live as long as I can. That's all. I'm gonna fight to the end. That's all I'm saying. And I appreciate you and y'all's services for not only me, for people like me. Because obviously we need you. Hospice, hospital, doctors and nurses. We gotta have it as we get old. Yeah, I appreciate everything y'all doing for me.
Well, I appreciate you, and it's always an honor and privilege for me to take care of.
So this was just a little backstory to what you were listening to, and I know it's probably hard to hear because it was hard for me to hear, so it probably was even harder for you to hear it. However, so it was my dad. Just this was him, his first day of home hospice care, um, and he was basically telling, saying that he didn't feel cheated in life, and he's lived a good life, and everything like that, and he wasn't done fighting. And then also it was him thanking the healthcare workers and just the hospice care program and just all those people who have helped him along the way. And so I guess in hearing that in that moment, and when I listen back at this, I get a little bit emotional because he had so much fight in him at that time. And but yet he's somewhere between that Sunday and then the 10th of February, because this the Sunday was the 1st of February, and so the 10th of February, but somewhere between then, he lost his uh, mojo, so to speak. And he was saying, he wasn't ready to go. He was, going to, continue to fight. And somewhere, some way down the line, he um, changed his focus. And I have to admit that I am still wrestling with what happened, what in his mind that said, "Listen, I'm at peace enough to go." But I will say this: the one thing that he definitely always said, and this is not just at the end of his life, but he said this all the time about how he has lived a good life. Coming from Mississippi, was able to. He went into the military, was able to travel. He sang with the Army Band and Chorus, so he was able to travel the world and just experience life. And he would always say it's a life that he doesn't know he would have been able to experience had he not went into the military. So he was not one or is not one that would dwell on the negative. My father was definitely one that always saw the glass half full and versus half empty. And his favorite line was, "You have to make your own happiness." And one thing I definitely can say about my father is that he definitely made his own happiness. He had, as long as he had his keyboard, his drum set, his karaoke machine. Just to listen to some of the stories, I know my cousin was saying that one of her best friends' fondest memories of him was it was like 6 o'clock in the morning. They were at I don't know if they were at my cousin's house or they were at at a cabin or something like that. And so 6 o'clock in the morning, this man's getting up with his karaoke machine, starting to sing. But that's what he's known for. He's known to just be the life of the party and bring happiness wherever he goes. You know, he definitely would always bring a smile to people's face. It's it's bittersweet in talking about him um, because I wish I was talking to him, and I guess in a sense I am. The thing about it is that um, I don't know why I keep saying but anyway, because I have my thoughts together, but then I have a thousand other things going through my mind at this time. So please bear with me as I go through. But um, I guess when I say that, and I go back to the beginning, when I say that it doesn't feel real yet, is because I never thought the day would come that he wouldn't be here. When my father called me and told me that he was diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer, and this was in 2021, I never had a thought in my mind that he wasn't going to make it. I always felt like, listen, he's going to beat this. He's going to, he's going to, come out on top. And if I can be honest, he didn't live like somebody that was sickly, so to speak. I don't like to use that terminology, but he didn't live life like that. You know what I'm saying? He was still doing his thing. Bought him a motorcycle. He was taking trips. He was riding his bike. He was doing his thing. You wouldn't, if you're looking at him and being around him, you would never be able to tell what he was going through. Which was kind of a testament to how he lived his life in general. Like you would never be able to tell what he had going on being around him because he never carried that. Some of us would carry everything that we're going through, and so that everybody can say, "Look, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?" But he never carried that. He always came upbeat, up spirited, and when you were around him, you just felt it was just magnetic and catchy. That you felt like you wanted to be just like him, or be just as cheerful and jovial as he is. So I didn't think the day would come that he would no longer be with us. And so then it wasn't until last year, I believe, I went to visit him and I saw him and I was like, wow, my dad's not doing well. You know, he just looked visibly different, and it wasn't, he was a man of a certain age, but it's just, you can tell that things were starting to wear and tear on his body. And so then I saw him again for Thanksgiving, and then it really set in a little bit more and stuff like that. And so, but yet and still, I will say this, even in seeing him that way, it never crossed my mind that he was not going to make it because he was a fighter. That was his mantra, so to speak. He always fought through everything. He always figured it out. He always made it make sense. And so I, in my mind, thought he would do the same thing in this case. So, you know, um, things happen. Things happened, and so here we are today, me talking about him as a memory versus in present tense. However, I will say that, man, this man touched so many. I want to be selfish and say how much he meant to me, but I can also be honest that he meant so much to so many other people. Like sitting, at his funeral, I was able to really witness and listen to so many people say so many good things about him. And I know. How many times do we go to a funeral and we have, people get up there and talk, oh, he was such a good man. Oh my gosh, she did so much of this and so much of that. And you be sitting there looking like, bitch, who? But um, in this case, I know for a fact that this whatever people were saying was true. Speaking of which, my my mother-in-law, and I'm sure you guys know her. Some of her know her from Hey Pumpkin, and she is one that will always speak her mind. And she would always tell me the story about like when she attended her father's funeral, and everybody got up there and they were saying all these wonderful things about him and everything like that. And so they were like, "Hey, you gonna talk? You gonna say something, some words?" And she was like, "Nah, I don't really want to say anything." And I was like, "No, you should say something. You should say a couple words for your dad at his funeral." And so, in the midst of everybody saying so many wonderful things about the man and everything like that, and remember, just giving a good tribute to him, she got up there and was like, "The man you talking about, I don't know him." And it's not funny, but it's funny. And you got to hear her tell the story because it's funny how she tells the story. But the fact of the matter is like a lot of times we do have those situations where you're sitting at a memorial service or something like that, or homegoing, and you listen to everybody say all these wonderful things about somebody, and then you have to wonder, is all this shit true? But anyway, I say this: everything that was said about my father, it was true. It was true, and plus some. Um, mm, it was true. It was true. Just thinking about all the, he was such a caring and such a giving man. And it it warmed my heart to hear everybody say such wonderful things about him. And it even warmed my heart even more that they would tell me, made a point to let me know how proud my father was of me or is of me. Because that's my biggest thing is like I always wanted to make my father proud. I always wanted to make him proud. Um, it hasn't, been a easy, and just a little backstory, um, I was adopted, and so I uh, that in itself was something I carried, and then um, being a gay man was something else I carried, and so I struggled with that, being having to say that to my father, um, because I know he was big on having grandkids, and then I was like, damn, he adopted me, and then now the disappointment of, now, man, I adopted this dude, he gay, and all that kind of stuff. So I carried that for so many years, and so when I finally had to have the conversation with my father and come out to him, I was so scared. Um, I tried to avoid it. I remember I tried to do everything I could that day versus going to the house. But anyway, I made it. I went to the house and we talked. And what I thought would turn out to be the worst day of my life actually turned out to be the best day of my life, honestly, or one of the best days of my life. Because instead of him going off or saying anything, he just gave me a hug and he looked me in my eyes and he said, "You know what? I'm sorry you had to carry this so long on your own." And that day only made us closer. Um, Only made us closer. And now, let's be honest. Is that the life? Is this the life that he would have chosen for his son? No shit. If I can be honest, this isn't the life I would have chosen for myself. But it is what it is, and here I am. And so he loved me in spite of, regardless of. And I felt like after that day, he loved me even more. Um, and it's just I can go on and on about this man and how he touched my life. And so, and the thing about it is, it's interesting because you would have thought, to know me, to know him, you would thought that I was his birth son, because we are so alike, from our temper, our short patience at times, to our smile, to our big hearts, to our caring and loving natures, um, to us both loving to see people happy and see people smile. And if my dad fuck with you, he fuck with you. Um, and he was definitely a forgiving person. Like he would complain and be like, what do I want? But at the end of the day, he would still be there for you, in spite of. And he's just a great man and a great father, a great friend, a great uncle, um, just a great guy. A couple of things I remember, that every time I would go on a trip, he would, even in my adult years, and I'm talking like I'm not 20 years old, I'm talking in my 30s. And even in my 40s, he would always say, if I'm going on a trip, hey, don't make sure you put your wallet in your front pocket and put your pocket knife in your sock. I'm like, oh, no, so you're trying to get me arrested, sir? Because if I put a pocket knife in my sock and I'm trying to get on this airplane, they gonna say something about this. So, but I chuckle about that. But it was just that he cared that much, and he always wanted me to be safe. And he would always call me his baby. And even at 48 years old, he would always still call me his baby. And then he would be like, he would say, all right, baby, I mean, son, you know, and I, I enjoyed I enjoy being my father's son, being his baby, because man, I know there's no rule book to parenting and fatherhood, and I just felt like he got it right on so many levels. And I listened to some people tell stories about their father, and some good, some bad, and I'm like, man, am definitely blessed to have him in my life. From the lessons of um, he would, as a growing up, I was a little long winded growing up. I'll admit that. And he would always tell me, hey, son, bottom line up front, basically get to the point quickly because I ain't got all day to listen to you talk and ramble. Um, you know, just little stuff like that I hold near and dear to my heart. Or for me, I pride myself, I try to pride myself on being, Pierre, my husband likes to call me Aquila. So because I have a thing about correcting people, like, and what I was doing to my dad, just, because he was from the South. So instead of saying stripped, he would say script and all that kind of stuff. But it's just those little things, the funny little things that now it's bittersweet because some of those jokes I would have, or some of the jokes he would have for me, are no longer, are no longer. Um, and it's unfortunate. Because I didn't never thought that the day would come again. I say that he wouldn't be here, and so Father's Day is coming along, and he's been gone about a little over 4 months, and Father's Day, and I don't know what Father's Day would look like for me, and not having him around. Um, people say they try to say all the cliches, oh, it gets easier, it gets. I don't know if it will, honestly. I could be honest, I don't know if I wanted to because if it got easier, then I would feel like I'm forgetting him or leaving him behind, and I definitely want to carry him everywhere that I go, um, because he carried me everywhere that he went. He had this big ass picture from me. I wish I could show it to you guys, but it's like this big picture from when I was like 3, 4 years old. He carried it everywhere. Everywhere. My friend would make fun because we went to his place one time, and as soon as you walked in the door, there was this big ass picture of me. Um, he carried me everywhere, and I definitely want to continue to honor him and carry him everywhere I go. So I don't necessarily really want it to get easier, um, because I don't want his memory to be lessened in any way. I want to continuously keep him close, as he always has been, as he always will be. So, thank you for allowing me to say a few things about my dad, as it as we're approaching Father's Day. Um, yeah, like I said, there's no rule book for it, but man, he got it right. He got it right. And like again, I say he wasn't just a father to me; he was a father to so many others. Friends, family, like my friends calling him pops. Neighborhood kids calling him Daddy Tony. God kids, nieces, nephews. He, man. All right. Again, thank you for spending a little time with me today, and we will see you all soon. But before we get out of here, just a little montage of pictures of my father. So